course, you touched on, obviously we've spoke quite a bit in the past, Trevor, about the way that the club has run, the way that the club had the season last year, and I guess we didn't project that it would finish the way it did. But what an amazing season, and what a way to I guess galvanise football in the town.
Well, it was very special, and it's been well documented that the season didn't go according to plan at the start. We got knocked out of the cups. League form wasn't great. And it sort of culminated in a very wet and extremely cold night in Buxton, where everything went wrong. The kit arrived from the laundry wet, so the players weren't over thrilled about wearing a wet kit on an icy night. We got beat 5-1, and there was only about 10 Scarborough fans there, which was the lowest away following that I've ever been involved with. So that was strange. That should be the start of something a bit special, because then, of course, we started being very hard to get beaten. We went on that long unbeaten run, and culminating, and we got to a stage where we sat down with Jono and we said, look, it's really simple now. All we have to do is win the 5 next games and we get promoted. So he just says, well, do that then. made it sound really, really easy. And of course we did, and that culminated in the tremendous playoff excitement, which generated so much interest. We had record attendances, which was absolutely fantastic. And then, of course, we did the double with winning the North Riding Senior Cup. And one of the things that's got lost a little bit when amongst all this success is that it was only our second full season at that level. Because the first season, I think we finished 8th, and we won the North Riding Senior Cup. The next 2 seasons were lost to COVID, and then we came back this season and got ourselves promoted. So we've only actually spent 2 full seasons in the Northern Premier League Premier Division. So that is quite some achievement. It's one that we should all be very, very proud of.
Yeah, I mean, again, you won't have predicted that was ever going to happen, and the buzz around the town. We always talk when we chat, Trevor, about how the club needs to continue to grow and the town get behind the club. And in those last couple of months of the season, they really did get behind Jono and the boys, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. So certainly, we want to keep that going. And on the pitch, the planning started well before the end of last season. Jono knew who we wanted to keep, and with the help of Fred Furman, football operations director, that they got a lot of deals done really early. So we were in a good place. By the time we played Warrington, we'd got a big chunk of our squad for next season, because Jono knew who we wanted to have this season, whether we got promoted or not. So that was great. He's brought in some exciting new faces, and maybe still one or more to come. So the planning for next season on the pitch has been absolutely first class, really, between everybody. But you mentioned the way the town engaged with as well. I certainly felt that on the 2nd of May, our town fell back in love with its football club. Because we had those 10 years at Bridlington where people didn't really know too much about us, and then we've gradually been building. But things sort of conspired to work in our favour. We had the problem with the tickets for the playoff final, where we've got 17,000 people trying to buy 1,000 tickets, which is unbelievable. We then managed to negotiate with all the powers that be to be allowed to live stream it, and suddenly we were going out live to homes, but all the pubs in Scarborough carried it, or most of them, and it was being beamed across the world. So we touched a lot of people that weekend and got a lot of people very excited back again football, and the town, I feel, has really embraced us, and that culminated in last week when the Mayor of Scarborough invited us down to the town hall for a civic reception. So really, really proud of what we've achieved. And I guess we start again now.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that community engagement is really growing in the town, and there's plenty of other work that the club have done throughout last season, and of course going to this year with the likes of the C Pups, working in the community, and the growth of that. It really does feel like the club is starting to grow within the local community as well.
Oh, it is. I think C-Pups, you mentioned there, is a great example of what we've been achieving. All the events that we've held so far have been really well attended, and we've got another one at the Foot Golf Centre on Friday tea time. So if anybody's got young children that want to come along to that, get them signed up to the CPOCs and join in. It's been very much, that initiative has been very much supported by the management players, making themselves available to meet the kids, sign autographs, etc., etc. As a result of that, we've actually got a queue of kids wanting to be mascots this season, so that's quite exciting. We've got our new CPUP mascot, Sandy the CPUP, and you know what? We've now got 275 CPUPs registered. So 275 kids that have got an interest in our local football team. So the future's quite bright, and our community work is stretching far, led by Steve Machin and his team of volunteers. They're really making a difference in the town of Scarborough, all across the way. It doesn't matter whether people are young or old or fit or infirm. They're touching everybody out. They're getting involved with schools and charities, individuals, groups. It's just been a massive, massive success. And one thing that I've been finding out is the National League are very, very pro clubs getting involved with community work like this. So we're working with the National League to do more, to obtain more funding, to spread that work further, because we've seen benefits to groups of kids with special needs or disabilities or whatever it is. They just love football. So we're trying to make football accessible to everybody in the town.
Yeah, and the growth of the CPUPs as well, Trevor. Those supporters that maybe enjoy playing football alongside, being involved as a fan, may look to the academy in the near future, and that continues to grow. Having spent a bit of time down watching the younger players, there's a real growth and hunger for young players to come through and represent and follow in the footsteps of the likes of Jimmy Beadle, Michael Coulson, Ryan Block.
Yeah. Well, of course, Paul Exley, our development director, but he works with his volunteer coaches, and he's been running teams from the ages of 7 to 23. So a massive spectrum of players at all different levels of ages and abilities. And of course, the facility at Filey that we've been improving, more improvements made to the pitches this summer, which is great. We've now got women's and girls teams coming through. So that's something we've never had before. And to cap it all off, Paul's just in the process of launching a reserve side to play in the Humber Premier League. So that gives lads locally, and interesting enough, we've had players coming from Middlesbrough, Barnsley, all over Yorkshire to come and try out for that team. So we want to get the best possible players at the level just below the first team, so that they can push for a place. And of course, if Jono's got some players he wants to get a bit of game time for a bit of fitness, it makes it possible for him to do that as well.
Yeah, which again is an exciting addition to have at the club, and something that we haven't had, so a great opportunity for that. And just finally on off the pitch and the update on looking at things in terms of sponsorship and the finances of the club. I know there was so many people who were wanting to get involved at the end of the season, even throughout the season. The sponsorships have been going through the roof. It does have the club in a very, very good state at the moment.
It's always easier to gain new sponsors when you're winning football matches. So you're right, a massive increase in interest. So sponsorship is really, really going through the roof. We get a lot of new local companies and companies from a little bit further afield wanting to get involved with what we're doing. We've sold out of ground board spaces around the ground now, which I've been wanting to say for the last 5 years, but we've actually done it now. So we're using space on the advert stand to put more advertising up. And we're working quite closely with some of these key sponsors to move the club forward. So they're not just giving us some cash, they're sharing their expertise in different fields that can help us grow the club. And of course, that means that our finances are okay. National League, as we're finding out week in, week out, is expensive. I was at a league meeting where some of the chairmen in our league were complaining that they've had to really scale things back this year, and they've only got £1 million to spend on players. So, so that makes us realise, what we're involved with. But things like travel costs, we're now in a position where we're having to, some matches, we're going to have to spend the night before in a hotel with the players to get them in the right place to play a football match, because we can't expect them to travel 6 hours in a bus and then win. So we've got to give them the best possible chance. So we're going to be looking for some accommodation sponsors, because it's going to cost us about £1,000 a time to do that. So it's not cheap, but we feel it's the right thing to do. The playoffs obviously helped our finances, because that gave us a really good boost at the end of the season. So our actual finances are in a really good shape. And of course, the added interest in the club is helping that, because we've sold over 600 season tickets. Previously we've been lucky to sell 350, so not quite double, but yes, that's a massive increase on season tickets. And we're continuing to apply our usual approach to finances. So we're not going to overspend. We are probably one of the more, economically balanced clubs in the league. So a lot of clubs in our league are millions of pounds in debt. That's how they finance a football club. We don't owe a penny, and we want to keep it that way. So we've got to keep that tight financial governance. So to help us do that, Mick Davison, former director, we've appointed him to a part-time role as a paid employee to help us control the finances, keep a close check on it. And we're also going to tap into his experience of project management. So he's going to help us project manager any ground improvements that we need to get involved with. So he's going to be a big help. But no, nothing to worry about the finances. As ever, we'll only spend the money we've got and not a penny more.
Yeah. Well, one of those first long trips is a trip down to Brackley on the first game of the season. Now, Brackley announced a couple of days ago that their tickets are now on sale. So for any of the fans that are wanting to get a ticket for that day, they are advising that supporters purchase their tickets online, because you can save yourself £2, because match day tickets are £2 higher. So there's an opportunity for any Scarborough fans who fancy the long trip down to Northamptonshire to get their tickets for the opening day of the season down to St James's Park, £13 for an adult as well. So rather than paying £15. So Trevor, the National League North, a lot of people probably will be questioning, saying, well, what does that mean for us as a football club? What are the rules and things that have been put in place? I guess you can probably shed a bit of light on what that means for us as a club.
Yeah, I think people keep saying to me, and some of the other clubs have said it to me, that we're in the big boys league now. And I think back, and when the club was started, the club attended meetings with the likes of Worsborough Bridge and Aston Villa, and I didn't even know where those places were. And then we felt we were really moving on when we were suddenly in the league with Pickering and Bridlington. And then, wow, we suddenly got up to the level of Whitby and South Shields and FC United. And I went to the National League meeting, AGM, and suddenly I'm in a room with Scunthorpe United, Oldham Athletic, Notts County. So that just shows how far we've come. and I don't know if you remember, during COVID, there was a big debate in this country about what level of football elite sport started, because that's when the rules kicked in. So it became very clear that National League North is the base level for elite football in this country. So we're classed as an elite sport now. So a lot of rules come with that. Compliance is always mandatory, but it's more than mandatory, because the penalties for non-compliance are quite severe, which is right, because we want to get it right. So we're having to change a few things. I just ask supporters to be patient with us. We won't get everything right first time. We're doing our best to get everything in place for the 13th when we play Hereford, but there's 127 pages of rules that we've got to comply with, so it's quite a big task, but we'll get there. We just want to make it as enjoyable as we can for everybody to continue supporting us.
Yeah, and no doubt plenty will be there at the Hereford game, of course, for that first game of the season at home. Any questions regarding the stadium? Is the stadium ready? Do you need to do anything? Because I saw obviously there was a group of volunteers that came down to make a couple of small improvements, like the grass and stuff, like, picking up grass or weeds or everything like that. What sort of changes have you needed to make ahead of the season?
Right, first and foremost, a massive thanks to the people that came down to help us out, because that was just before we had our ground grading inspection to make sure the ground was suitable for playing football at this level. So, so is the ground ready? What do we need to do? Well, some people have been concerned about capacity. Our capacity was 2,833. Mick Davison noticed in his work on plans for the future that some of the calculations where the original architect had calculated the flat standing areas wasn't quite right. They were using the wrong multiplier. So we recalculated the capacity to 3,251. We had to take that to the safety action group and put the case and show the workings, etc. So that was unanimously accepted. We couldn't use that, although it had already gone through the process, we couldn't use that capacity for the playoff games at the end of last season because we hadn't received the actual license, because we have to have a license to operate at that capacity. So we've got the license now. That's come through. So that is our official capacity, 3,251, the minimum league capacity being 3,000. So we're there as far as we can. Other changes, seat allocations. You wouldn't believe the number of people we have to provide for. You know, there's more press, there's more directors, there's more league officials. So we've had to move people's seats around a little bit. And the big one is we've got to be able to segregate properly. So we're going to use the corner of the stadium near the swimming pool end with the terracing and the first block of seats, which will give us our minimum 600 capacity away end. We've bought some gates to segregate properly. They'll be fitted before the Hereford game. We've got planning permission in to put some permanent toilets in that corner, but they may not be ready for the start of the season because there is a bit of a problem with the full planning consent. So we may have to use portaloos for the first few matches, but we'll be getting that done as soon as possible. But the away end, the proper away end, is on our to-do list. So this is our temporary arrangement until we can get the proper away end at the swimming pool built, because I think it's very important that we look after visiting supporters. We don't want to be known as the club that don't bother with away fans. I think we've been told that clubs are likely to travel in larger numbers. And of course, that's great for the local economy, because I'm sure a lot of them will want to stay over, given the distances involved. So local hotels and pubs, etc., could actually benefit from it. And of course, we benefit. You know, if 100 fans from a club this year and we don't look after them, and only 50 come back next year, then we've lost quite a bit of match day revenue. So really important that we get that right. But coming back to the original point about the fans coming down to tidy up, that was important because we had our ground grading inspection. Because to play in this league continuously, we have to be a level B stadium. The guy that came down, he'd come up all the way from Gloucester. He was very impressed with the facilities. He was very happy with the way we were running things. He just needed the final license stating the capacity and a couple of signs renewing, and he was happy. So it'll be a while before it's issued, but we're just about ready to be classed as a grade B ground, which means that clubs, when the promoter, are given till the 31st of March the following year, but we're ahead of the game on that, so it looks like we're just about there.
Yeah, exactly. Wonderful news, and once again, thanks to all the volunteers that came down. And just finally, Trevor, I know towards the latter stage of last season, when the attendances were at a high, the bar in the clubhouse area was really busy, full of fans, and fans were in there. Is there an update on the bar situation ahead of the start of the new season?
We're working hard to make some changes, because now the queuing wasn't acceptable. So what we're doing, we're purchasing a marquee. If those of you that have been to South Shields will know the marquee that they've got there. So we're purchasing a marquee to put on the multi-use games area or tennis court near the clubhouse. It's the same length as the Shields marquee, but just ever so slightly narrower. So that we'll be using that as a bar, and that'll be our borough bar. So, as a club, that'll be more beneficial to us financially. The clubhouse, as it stands, will be used for. Well, we've got more obligations. Excuse me, we're looking after visiting officials and directors, and we want to open it up to more affordable hospitality. So we're selling hospitality in there at a much more affordable price. We're looking to put the prices as low as we can to encourage people to come and have a good time. So there'll be people in hospitality with their own bar. Supporters that don't want hospitality will have their own bar. And we're not expecting to have large queues because we think we've got a way of sorting that out. So there's lots to do. We may need some help to get it all finished before the 13th. But it just helps us fulfill our league obligations, and I'm hoping make a better experience for everybody. That's for sure.
Yeah, and that is the most and most paramount for everyone. And of course, Trevor, now that we've sort of chatted a little bit about what the NPL looks for us, you talked a little bit about segregation. You talked about the security guards, of course, whose main job is to keep everybody safe in the grounds. Just touch on quickly the police partnership that's in place ahead of the new season, of course. So just so that fans know exactly what is now in place.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, the police partnership is great because this is the level of football where permanent policing kicks in. So we have a dedicated football officer attached to our football club, and 2 of those will likely be at most of our home games. Some high-risk games will be segregated to, not segregated, they'll be policed to a higher level. But not inside the ground. I had a Zoom meeting with the chief inspector in charge of football policing recently, and she was very helpful. She doesn't want the club to incur any costs unless absolutely necessary. So we will have football. Some people call them football spotters, but football officers in the ground. And as long as everybody behaves and we don't have to call them extra policing from outside, then the club won't get charged. So that's really positive. A little bit frustrating, but I sort of understand it, is that we are going to have to segregate every game. All the games are going to be segregated. We've been given that advice from both the safety action group that govern our license to play football in the ground and the police. So all games are going to be segregated. We've got to prioritise the safety of our own supporters as well. And we've just talked earlier about the CPUPs. We've got more families attending matches with more young supporters. We just talked about 275 CPUPs, so we've got to keep them safe as well. We've been told that clubs will bring more supporters with them, so it does make everything easier. And then, of course, what created more of a problem was that there were incidents at the end of the playoff final against Warrington. And because of those incidents, we've now got to prove to the police and the safety action group that we can deliver a safe event. Because not only has it meant that we've got to keep segregating, but also these incidents, like with the flares, etc., have cost us a lot of money as well. So if we get it wrong, there's some severe penalties to pay. So we're going to have to take a zero tolerance approach to any incidents in or around the ground, because it puts our club at risk. And I want people to come and enjoy a football match with their family, with their friends, have a couple of beers if that's what they want to do in the best possible way, and just have some fun. And just keep everybody safe. So I know people will get frustrated if there's only half a dozen fans in the away section, but that's just the way it is for the moment until we can prove that we can do it safely and properly.
Yeah, 100%. And just on a bit of a change, Trevor, obviously we've talked quite a bit. We've talked for quite a while actually about how things are going to look ahead of the season. There are also some improvements that fans may be looking at. For example, the microphone system, scoreboard, etc., stuff like that. Where's the club looking at the moment in terms of them?
Right. Okay. So, well, first things first. Let's just briefly touch on seating, because clear message we need to give out here. there's no seats left in the main stand because of our additional need for supplying visiting officials and everything else. There's no seats in the main stand. So unless you've got a season ticket, there'll be no access to the main stand. You mentioned the tannoy. Again, that's been problematic, but we're in the process of having it fixed again. So that'll be tested before the season. So I'm hoping that that'll be okay. If anybody wants seats, there's still some for sale in the Aberset stand. If you want to get a season ticket, there's still some seats available, because if you haven't got a season ticket, you might find it quite difficult to get a seat. And what were the other things you were asking me? I'm forgetting already.
Scoreboard.
Oh, scoreboard, yeah. We're looking again. We'll be applying for planning permission for a large electronic scoreboard at the swimming pool end of the ground. One of our sponsors has kindly offered to purchase one for us, so that's great, because that sponsor is going to cover the initial cost of the scoreboard, and we'll be able to make some revenue from running other companies' adverts on it. So that's the sort of positive work we can do with our sponsors. They're enablers, other sponsors, to make more money. So yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, well, Trevor, it sounds extremely exciting. I know a lot of fans can't wait for the season to begin, but I guess that first game of the season for you, when some of the hard work will hopefully, the kit will be out there, the players will be out playing, hopefully 3 points away from home as well in the first game of the season. You must be really excited for what should be another special, memorable season.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting started. It's we know it's going to be hard. We know we're in a league where we've overperformed to get there, so we're going to have to really overperform to stay in it. John is very comfortable with his squad of players. The club's been run sustainably, so we've no worry on that side. The players are all in great shape and enjoying their time with us, which is important as well. And we're going to see where it takes us. As for me personally, yeah, I always get nervous for the season, but I'm hoping that when the football starts, we can have a bit of a rest, because most of us, we haven't had a day off since the Warrington game. We started a planning meeting very shortly after that game, and we're still on with it daily. But I think people will hopefully come to the Hereford game. It will look and feel different. There'll be somewhere different to go and have a drink. There'll be somewhere different if you want to go and have a meal. The ground might look slightly different. Players have got their names on the back of the shirt, so that will look different. So there's a lot of stuff that we've got to embrace. But as I said before, just if everyone needs to be patient with us, because we've been working 100 miles an hour for the last 2 or 3 months to get to this point. And we still are. So we'll get there. We'll get there as best as we can.